Get on the stick, yeah.
Come on. We'll see.
Okay, good morning, members and guests. Ms. Richmond, please call the roll to determine a quorum is present.
Chairwoman Ma,
Here.
Ms. Harkey,
Here.
Mr. Runner,
Here.
Mr. Horton,
Here.
Ms. Stowers.
Here. Okay, a quorum is present, and the meeting of the Board of Equalization is hereby reconvened. C5, the reps are not here at this moment, so we are going to take C6 first. Mr. Ron Austin.
Thank you.
Board Proceedings has received contribution disclosure forms for today's hearings from the parties, participants, and agents. All forms were properly completed and signed, and no disqualifying contributions were disclosed. All parties, participants, and agents are on the alpha listings provided to your office. Each person sitting at the table will be asked to introduce themselves and, if necessary, their affiliation with the taxpayer for the record. 10 minutes is allocated for the taxpayer's opening presentation, followed by 10 minutes for the department's presentation, and 5 minutes is allocated to the taxpayer for rebuttal. Chairwoman Ma.
Thank you very much. To the appeals, Ms. Vareggi, will you please introduce the issues in the case?
Good morning, Madam Chair Ma and board members. I'm Ramona Vareggi on behalf of the Appeals Division. The appeal before you presents one unresolved issue, which is whether additional adjustments are warranted to the unreported taxable sales.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Austin?
Yes.
Welcome. You will have 10 minutes on your presentation. The board will have 10 minutes, then you'll have 5 minutes on rebuttal, and then we will open it up for question and answers. So welcome. Please introduce yourself for the record, and you may begin.
My name is Ron Austin. I'm the taxpayer. I had an audit. The audit didn't take into account a lot of things. I have a copy of all the invoices from the audit period. So I've turned these in before, but they were returned to me. I also QuickBooks. When I do my reports for taxes, QuickBooks will run the report for the amount of invoices that I have produced for that period versus the amount of money that I've received for that period. It's just a quirk with QuickBooks. So from the beginning, I've used that report. So if someone doesn't pay me, it's on my quarterly report. I don't go back and I usually don't amend the quarterly report. So for that 3-year period, I have about $30,000 of unpaid invoices that weren't taken into account. The main manufacturer, NEC, when they bring out a new piece of equipment, before I get trained, they demand that I buy equipment to demonstrate for clients. It can't be sold, it's demo equipment. So they've changed equipment 3 or 4 times. Through this 3 period, I purchased $12,000 of demo equipment, which I can't really sell because it's for demonstration purposes only. That wasn't taken into consideration in the audit. The manufacturer gives me a 1-year warranty on their equipment, but to gain an advantage with the competition, I've always offered a 5-year warranty on parts and labor on the equipment. So if something fails between year 2 and 5, I purchase that piece of equipment and replace it with the defective equipment at the client's site. That wasn't taken into account of my purchases during the audit either. I lease through a couple of leasing agencies. They collect the tax on the equipment. I'm not sure if that has been taken into consideration in the audit or not. And during the time of this audit, I was on a payment plan, so I was producing copies of my bank accounts to the Board of Equalization on a monthly basis. They know that how much money I have, that I don't have $30,000, $50,000 extra anywhere like the auditor was supposing. So I don't think the audit was very accurate. I do have a copy of every invoice. I've produced a copy of my QuickBooks for the period to the Board of Equalization. They just returned it to me. So I don't think that, I think that all of my reports are accurate and I don't owe any money.
Okay. Well, we will see what the board says. To the attorneys, please introduce yourself for the records, and you'll have 10 minutes.
Good morning, Chairwoman Ma and members. My name is Scott Lambert. I'll be representing the Business Tax and Fee Department today. To my right is Kevin Hanks, also with the Business Tax and Fee Department. And to Mr. Hanks' right is Stephen Smith with the Legal Department. In this particular case, the taxpayer is a retailer of telephone systems, security cameras, and equipment of that nature. Upon audit, the taxpayer provided limited records. They consisted of the federal income tax returns, profit and loss statements, and some sales invoices. There were no purchase invoices that were provided. Upon looking at the cost of goods sold and comparing that to the taxable sales that were reported, there was a negative markup, which means that the sales were below the cost of goods sold. The markup in 2009 was a negative 41%. In 2010, it was a negative 83%. And in 2011, it was a negative 75%. So there appeared to be an issue with the reporting of sales. The taxpayer did provide some sales invoices. They were limited in nature, but we were able to confirm that there were sales to a company called NEC Financial that were for resale that added to approximately $81,000, and that was allowed in the audit. There was also a category for supplies and materials. We had no information to indicate whether those items were purchase tax paid. In any case, we allowed those as being tax paid. They're not included in the audit, so the only thing that's been included in the audit are the cost of goods sold, and those were marked up by 100%, and that was based on a conversation that the auditor had with the taxpayer. So the cost of goods sold was marked up by 100%. We allowed sales to NEC Financial, came up with a difference and compared that to what was reported. We came up with a difference of $123,000. The taxpayer did provide us with QuickBooks. I believe it was a thumb drive. We were unable to open that. We did not receive any information in regards to bad debts. I'll point out the taxpayer is on the cash basis for income tax returns, so they would not claim bad debts on their income tax returns, but there was no information that was provided to us as to who the customers were that weren't paying, let alone even who the customers were. We were not aware of that. The taxpayer appears to be operating out of his home. On his website, he shows that he has a 30,000 square foot warehouse with facilities in 6 other cities. Based on the website, it appears to be a larger operation than what's been depicted by the records that have been provided. So accordingly, without additional information, the department prepared the audit using the best information that was available. So accordingly, the department concurs with the Appeals Division decision and recommendation.
Okay. Mr. Austin, 5 minutes on rebuttal.
The auditor was at my home, and I gave him access to my computer, to all of my records, to my QuickBooks, and to my taxes, which were also on my computer, and that's where they got the information. So all that information was made available. The accounts that I have put into collections, I did present that file to the Board of Equalization with my accounts that have been put into, that I couldn't collect on. Another thing that I do is that I bill 3 ways: $95 collect on delivery, $125 an hour, net 30, and over net 30, $155 an hour in an attempt to collect receivables in a timely manner. A lot of my clients pay $95 no matter when they get it. I don't argue with them. And going back and changing the invoice is kind of moot after I've already filed the quarterly tax return and paid for the quarterly tax return. So the second thing is that NEC is my main manufacturer, and I am their partner, so I do show a picture of their warehouse and the equipment that NEC, my partner, has available to me 24/7 on my website. And at one point, when the business was going a little better, I did have several people that were assisting me, and I had equipment stored at their locations, and I was using their addresses as a response. I'm a sole proprietor. I've never had a payroll. My bank account shows I've never made in excess of $100,000 a year gross. And I don't have $100,000, $150,000 profit laying around hidden anywhere. And I have presented every invoice, paid and not paid, and I have them all again.
Mr. Renner.
Just a couple of quick questions in regards to some of the discrepancies to the department. Taxpayer provided a thumb drive, you couldn't open it. What was our attempt to get back to the taxpayer to say, hey, what's the deal here? Can we help us open this thumb drive?
I'm not sure exactly what took place in that case. I know the department made their attempt to do it, notified them that they couldn't open it. I'm not sure what took place after that time.
And what was your communication back to the department when they couldn't open your thumb drive?
I gave them a DVD with the information on it after that.
Okay. Did we have record of the DVD being passed then?
I don't.
So when you describe these things are things that are in the record from the audit,
Yes,
not things that you all know took place.
that's correct.
Okay, just double checking on that. So we don't have any, so you believe you sent them all the information after they couldn't receive the thumb drive?
They have a copy of all of my collectibles.
Okay, let me go.
They have returned this copy of all of the invoices.
Let me go there. You have all your invoices there.
Yes, sir.
The report said that they had partial invoices.
That's correct.
So you don't believe these are all the invoices?
Well, I can't tell you if those are all the invoices or not.
Okay.
What I can tell you is that the information, the reports that I have, the information we received were limited invoices were provided. It was not a detailed, it was not something that we could go down and transcribe as to the sales. We would have done that if that was the case. So there were some invoices that were provided. We had asked for, obviously, all the invoices, but we also wanted the purchase invoices in order to take a look at what their actual markup was.
Do you believe you provided the purchase invoices?
No, I didn't provide with the...
Any record of the purchases that you made? Did you provide any information regarding that?
No, sir, I wasn't asked for it, and I didn't provide it, so I apologize.
Let me just ask a couple of things in regards to the what was allowed for some of these for either bad debt expenses or for some of these purchases that were made that were for demo equipment, I guess is what it would be. What was provided for the taxpayer in that regard?
I don't believe anything was provided for that.
I think that was the difficulty, Mr. Runner, that the audit staff had was just verifying, to the extent that there were bad debts, what those bad debts were. He hadn't documented either that he had the demo equipment that he's describing.
Was there any allowance for bad debt?
No.
Do we know any business that would not operate with some kind of bad debt?
Yes.
Is that right?
I
Do you think
think so.
business, well, that would be a really good business if somebody could actually operate and be able to have
Yeah.
100%.
I would say generally, businesses will have bad debts.
Right.
Generally.
Generally.
But not always.
My industry.
Oh, I just meant, yeah, was it?
So, yeah, in this particular case.
Typically, don't we typically allow for bad debt?
Well, you have to provide the documentation for the bad debt in order to allow it. We can't just estimate what your bad debts would be.
Well,
Mr.
oftentimes
Renner?
it seems to me you guys are before us and you talk about what industry norms are. Is there not an industry norm for bad debt in this kind of a business?
There may be. I mean, this business is slightly different than a general business in the fact that it's being operated out of his home, which you're probably going to have a little bit different circumstances when you're going to some of these, and I would think they're mainly businesses, but I'm not sure exactly,
Okay.
where they're being.
Okay, let me just ask, in regards to the income tax returns,
Yes, sir.
a lot of this audit was based upon what you reported on your income tax. What's the discrepancy then that between what you're saying here took place in terms of these sales and what you reported on your income tax?
Well, business was rough through those years,
Okay.
2009.
Sure, yes, it was.
I always thought it was going to get better. So
Well, why-
instead of throwing in the towel, I kept pushing it. But
But why would you reflect something different in your income tax versus what you're reporting to the board?
I think my income tax shows that I purchased equipment that I didn't get paid for. I purchased equipment that I didn't sell. And I purchased equipment that I used for warranty that I didn't collect on. So that's what my income tax shows.
Let me ask you, go back to the part, the income tax returns that we're dealing with, are they demonstrating purchases or are they demonstrating sales?
Well, both, but we use the cost of goods sold, which is generally what you're putting in there are items that you sold.
Okay. I got to tell you, to the taxpayer, I'd like to get more information. My problem is I know my office reached out to you and you didn't return calls. And so that makes it really difficult for us to kind of help you through a process here. So it's hard for me to do that just kind of on the fly here. So, some of the things I'm hearing in regards to your non-response to the department is consistent with non-response to my office. So I'm trying to get through it, but it makes it difficult when we can't have good conversations prior. So let me see if any of the other members have any thoughts or questions.
Ms. Harkey.
My office did not receive return phone calls. I think Clifford Oaks left a message. We're trying to figure out, if there's any options here for you prior to the hearing to help you out. But I do have an email here that's from the auditor and various appeals division that says, it's August 12th, says, Dear Mr. Austin, as you know, I couldn't open the QuickBooks on the flash drive you provided. However, I reviewed invoices and the general ledger copy. Attaches the schedule I prepared for the claim bad debt invoices. Please review it and let me know if these invoices you are claiming is bad debt. Based on my review, some of the invoices are taxable sales. However, the rest are either non-taxable or or the general ledger you provide are missing this information. Please review and provide correct amounts if they are taxable sales or non-taxable. I did not find any invoices related to the replacement for warranty. Please email me a copy of the invoices so this audit can be concluded. And then it says, down here, it says, I received your voicemail stating that you were dropping off the documents in a flash drive at the Riverside office today. That's 7/23/15. Department will have 15 days to review documents and files. So it sounds like there was communication. It sounds like he dropped off what was necessary. Does the department have any record of this?
He did provide invoices after the appeals conference, and there are some copies of those, but those are, they appear to be incomplete, at least the ones that I have seen. The invoice numbers, there's large gaps between them. As far as he did provide a thumb drive to us, and we could not open that. And
Did you have any expert try to open it? I mean, it seems like this is all an issue with a flash drive on
Yeah.
QuickBooks, and I think QuickBooks would have answered most of these questions, and would have given the department a real solid case. The appellant seems credible. Unfortunately, I think he's just not. It's really unfortunate, as Mr. Runner said, they didn't return calls to our offices, and we couldn't have gotten involved in this a little bit earlier. But it appears that there was communication. It appears there was a drop-off as later as July 23rd of 15, or 7/23, 7/23 of 15. And as much as I hate to do this, I would like to send this back for a 30/30/30 and see if we can't get those QuickBook docs opened and see what we get. I think that, if it's not there, it's not there. But I don't see, I think the appellant is credible. I don't see him as a high flyer, and I'm just kind of predisposed to want to at least look at that QuickBooks file. And if we can't get QuickBooks, then I guess we're in trouble. But I think that we can have experts that can open those things up on the flash drive.
yeah, we do have computer audit specialists that can do that. Generally, the audit staff can do it. They have the system in the district offices that they can open it up, and
Right, but
generally
you
that.
just said that they didn't do that. So,
Right.
and we know that generally they can.
Right.
And if not, we can call in a specialist. So
Right.
I think that's like the real key issue here. And I think sometimes constituents don't call back because they think it's just one more auditor. We get that periodically where they just don't want to talk about it anymore. And so I am a little bit sympathetic to this.
Right.
Would I have support from staff, or from the board rather, to send this out on a 30/30/30 and see if we can't get some information?
Can we just ask a couple questions?
I would, sure, go
Okay,
ahead.
good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So, Mr. Austin, how long have you been in business for yourself?
11 years.
Okay. Are you still open? Still?
I'll be giving a letter to the Board of Equalization this quarter that I'm no longer in business.
Okay, no, that wasn't my question. I just wanted to ask, do you have a bookkeeper that you work with, or
No.
you do your own QuickBooks?
Yes.
Okay. I do sympathize with the taxpayer. I think he was trying to keep track of, all of his purchases and his sales and stuff. But, if you're not an accountant or a bookkeeper or someone that is thinking about reversing everything out, right, when you don't get paid or you get paid late, or, and then these books are being used in a sales tax audit because now they don't jive. I think there needs to be some explanation in terms of how you keep your books, and the fact that you didn't maybe back out for bad debts. You probably had a ledger that said, hey, I never got paid for this, I never got paid for that, but you probably didn't adjust your QuickBooks, which is not something I think a lot of people do. They just use it as like an accounting tool and a check register, so to speak. And I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but maybe you can tell us, how you use your QuickBooks.
Well, First off is that if I don't charge anyone, I wasn't making an invoice. So that would be the warranty equipment. So in order for me to, I do keep a service order handwritten, and I have quite a stack of those. And going back through all those to see how many I attempted to do that for a few of these years, but with other stuff going on, it quite frankly has been overwhelming. I did speak to Clifford several times, and I can't remember, I think it was a gal from your office. The VA and a kidney stone and then a kidney infection, the last month and a half I've been in a bad situation. The VA's just, it's been rough. It's been really rough. And someone Clifford led me to said to go to the the folks that mediate and make a settlement. That's where I need to go from this point. So I spend some time going there, and they tell me, look, you're not even in the right place. So a lot of times I get spun in circles. I just wanted to get in and get in front of stuff here and get moving on the stuff. And I haven't been audited before, so I wasn't prepared for some of the questions that have been asked of me. I made it clear, crystal clear, I'm not able to double the markup on my equipment because the industry won't bear that. We have a very competitive industry. And also because I'm an entrepreneur and I work from my home, some folks have been able to get equipment from me and I haven't been able to get payment from them. Plain and simple. I spend a lot of time and I go to small claims courts and stuff, and I just don't get it. It's like a waste of time to go to small claims court. The guy will just the mediator will just cut the stuff in half, and if I don't accept that, I lose. So it's rough. It's been rough to run this. But I've tried to keep my warranty. Business is falling to nothing now. But folks have trusted me, and I've told them I give them a 5-year warranty, and that's the only reason I'm continuing in business up to this point. But I can't continue anymore. I did audit. I did change some QuickBooks and go back and audit. I went into the Board of Equalization, and my rep, Sonia Garcia, and her handwriting audited the 4 of the quarters. I was owed money, $2,200. From that point on, me trying to collect that money and get back because of those audits, I have been fighting tooth and nail. So, no, I don't go back and I don't amend any quarterly returns now. It has created me so much difficulty that I would never, ever do it again. And it was my rep, her handwriting, actually did the amended returns. I was very adamant, you owe me $2,200, here it is in her writing and all that. No, we don't, no. Then I'm audited. They say it's a different timing, I think it's the same timing. But all through this, I've been making quarterly payments and I've been turning in bank accounts. My bank records to Board of Equalization for years. They know I don't have the money and I'm not bringing in that kind of money and things like that. My industry is a high-loss industry. Everyone knows that IT stuff is rough to collect on, especially for a sole proprietor. I have $30,000 some odd worth of losses over this period. I've got invoices that say I'm charging, somebody took me 60 days, I'm charging them $155 an hour, and they're paying me $95. I'm not going to court. I've always lost. Always, always lost. Never got more than the original 95 in court. Don't even go. Why would I go back and change it? I can't go to the Board of Equalization and change it. They'll rip me apart. So this has just been going, and I've been to meetings with the board. I've contacted the board. I've got a stack of emails with the board. This last month and a half, I apologize to Cliff and your folks. I've been down and out. But I didn't make $175,000 over and hide it in a pillowcase somewhere. It just didn't happen. My income doesn't show it. My lifestyle doesn't show it. My history doesn't show it. There's no 1099s or W-2s or anything rolling in that show that I'm, it's just not happening. It's been a struggle.
Okay, Ms. Stars.
Thank you. To the, Mr. Austin, do you still have the flash drive? Your QuickBooks flash drive?
I still have QuickBooks, and I can copy that on a DVD, a flash drive, anything. And if someone wants to come to the auditor was in my office, in my chair, with access to everything that I have, carte blanche.
Okay.
I didn't block him from getting anything. He had my files, he had my QuickBooks, all my taxes were on the computer. He didn't want to look at paper.
Okay, I understand. Great, thank you. To the department, I want to ask you about the markup.
But I could definitely
You definitely could
produce
provide it.
another one, yes, ma'am.
Okay, for the markup, you guys use 100% markup based on Mr. Austin's statement,
Verbal
verbal
response.
statement.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any data on what the industry average is for markup?
I don't. I'm not familiar with this type of business myself personally. I did reach out to other offices to see what their experience has been in this type of business. I got one response back, and their thought is they would expect the markup probably to be lower than the 100%. What I would say is that we have asked the taxpayer for purchase invoices. We'd be more than happy to calculate an actual markup based on the sales of the product and the purchase price of it, instead of estimating it based on his verbal response. So if he's able to provide us with a purchase invoice, we would be willing, well, I should say purchase invoices, we would be willing to calculate a markup.
Okay. So the one office said their experience is the markup would be lower than
It has been.
his verbal
Yes.
statement, but the department also says the negative markup is not reasonable.
Well, that's right.
Okay,
Um,
okay. Just
and
want to be
that-
clear, so it's not negative, but it's not 100% either, somewhere in between.
Well, right. It would not be negative, and that's what it shows right now. And, well, what I would say is, if you take a look at his purchases and compare to what he's reported as sales, he reported during the 3.5-year period, he reported $63,000 in taxable sales, but his purchases were, I think it was close to 250,000, which, I mean, that's the purchases compared to this is sales, but you would have to back out the 80,000 for resales out of that. But even still, when you take a look at that, you reported 63 and you're still 150 something in purchases. It's a large disparity between the two.
And when it comes to the purchase invoices, would you need all of them, or would you be able to
No,
sample them?
I think we could sample them. It would have to be like a representative period,
Okay.
and we would be willing to do that.
Mr. Austin, do you have access to your purchase invoices?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Horn.
I can appreciate the position of the department when there just doesn't seem to be adequate books and records in order to make the computations. Sounds as if though the department, or at least the auditor, made some attempt to obtain that information. The inherent challenge on the side of the taxpayer is, though, you know, when life challenges sort of hit you, it affects your thinking and the process. And then when you're faced with dealing with a bureaucracy, even though there appears to be, based on the data provided, an understatement. And so now the question is whether or not the appropriate adjustments were provided in order to accurately reflect the proper amount of tax that may be due to the state of California. And therein is where the breakdown seems to have happened as far as cooperation from the taxpayer, understanding from the taxpayer, and so forth. In reviewing the audit working papers, I must say it was a little concerning that there wasn't comments about the adjustments that could have been made to reflect that possibly this could have been made, or possibly there could have been an adjustment for bad debts. However, the evidence wasn't provided in order to make the adjustment for bad debts. Possibly there could have been an adjustment for installation labor, which is exempt, but the evidence wasn't there to determine what that adjustment might be. He has maintenance contracts, whether those maintenance contracts are mandatory or optional. Therein may be an adjustment for repair labor. So in hindsight, when we look at the documents presented, it sort of appears that the department didn't take it into consideration and have the discussion with the taxpayer, which may have solicited verbal testimony of some sort to give the department some additional insight to what the actual data may have been or where to have gone and obtained that data. So I'm going to see if I can go through that process a little bit and see if it's helpful. Question of the taxpayer. The items that you sold, did you install any of those items?
Yes, sir.
And tell me about how you billed for installation. Or did you? Was it?
Well, you know, it's competitive in the industry, very competitive.
Not how much. Did you?
And so sometimes I have to emulate a good competitor in order to be successful at winning an award. Some of the competitors, they will give a quote to the client for equipment only and say the labor is free, where they folded a price in actually for the labor and for the warranty. And so I have to, and if someone, hey, they're not charging me labor, I can't, well, I have to, goodbye, sorry. I'm not in a position to be able to do that. I have to, well, what are they charging? So I have to present things sort of in that way if I can. Normally I would charge a different price I would charge for equipment and charge for labor.
I would think the customer is looking at the bottom line. So if
They're always looking
including
at the bottom line.
If your competitor includes installation, labor, and maintenance in their contract, the ultimate sales price is going to be higher than yours as far as the product. And then when you add it in separately stated, hopefully, it will be a competitive price. So what I'm hearing you say is that instead of billing lump sum, you actually bill for the product and then separate for installation?
Yeah, I would normally bill a separate line item for installation, yes, sir.
Do you have any invoices that reflect that?
Definitely, yes, sir.
You've got some with you? I see you
Yes,
looking
sir.
down.
Mhm.
Okay. And when you went back out to make repairs, how did you bill for that? Did you bill parts and labor? Or you just?
If they added, moved, or changed something, I billed them.
Okay.
If something I sold them broke, the labor and the part were
Was
free of
under
charge to
warranty.
the client. They're
Okay.
under warranty.
Okay. And how often did you have situations where things changed that were not under warranty but caused you to have to make additional charges for repair or?
That's a normal piece of business, that someone would add a phone add a board for more telephone lines or something like that, and I would charge them for labor and the part.
I
That's
thought I heard in your testimony that you filed small claims on some of your customers?
Yes, sir.
You have the court documents where you?
No, sir.
Can you get the court documents?
I think so.
How often did you file, how often did you?
I filed
take-
maybe 3 times.
And that's because of the expense of doing so, or?
The time and the expense versus the return, it didn't seem to me to make sense to do that.
Okay. Your income tax returns, who prepared those for you?
I do.
And you use QuickBook to do that?
I use TurboTax.
Use TurboTax. Where did you get the numbers to prepare your tax returns?
From QuickBooks.
You just pulled them out of QuickBook?
Yes, sir.
The department, the
I-
department indicated earlier that they had taken a look at cost of goods sold, and I think you indicated that you thought the cost of goods sold was somewhere around 250,000.
Yes.
Where did you get the cost of goods sold number?
Well, we got the cost of goods sold from their income tax returns.
Okay. And question of the taxpayer, in pulling your, determining what your cost of goods sold, did you, what did you include in cost of goods sold on your tax? Well, strike that. Let me go back to the department. Were there deductions on the tax returns for other expenses, such as labor, parts, and non-purchase type expenses? What I'm getting at, could the taxpayer possibly have reflected cost of goods sold to include his cost of operation as opposed to
Right.
actual purchases?
I should correct my statement in terms of the cost of goods sold. It was actually $122,000
Okay.
for total cost of goods sold. So could it have included other things? It's possible, but he did have materials and supplies broken out in a different category.
He did?
That he did. And those were allowed as tax paid. And he does do installation, so, and I have seen some of the invoices, and it does show installation separate, but the installation would not be included in the purchases, and so when you apply a markup to the purchases, it would not include installation. Now, if you did have circumstances, which he explained, where he has
No.
a lump sum,
I think where where I'm going with this is I concur with your assessment about the installation not being reflected in the markup. The inherent challenge is the markup. And so when you take a look at these other factors, it begins to give you a better picture of what the markup should have been, or whether or not the markup, which he stated, of 100% is actually lower. And so from my experience, sometimes the challenge is semantics. And so when you say to the taxpayer cost of goods sold, they think cost of operation. When you say to the taxpayer markup, well, they sort of think, well, what's my markup on labor and parts and so forth and so on? And so without really doing a markup test and a segregation test, because of the information and the data isn't there, the only way we can get at what the markup might be, just to give us a sense of it, is to begin to do these types of questions and interviews. So, question of the taxpayer, your cost of goods sold, did that include anything? Was that just purchases in your mind when you put it on the?
You know, I apologize that I'm not a tax expert, but I would say cost of goods sold, or the line that he took, is probably all the things that I write off.
Okay. All right. I would concur with Member Harkey, Ma, well, all the board seem to be, that this is one of those situations where the lack of cooperation in providing books and records early on caused the agency to basically take what I think is the appropriate position, is to make a call based on the available data. And then going forward, it appears that the agency could have explored other opportunities to make adjustments to those numbers, the markup itself, the bad debt deductions, and so forth. But the position that the agency takes, that that's incumbent upon the taxpayer to at least make the argument that it exists, and then make the argument, then provide whatever factual documentation that they can provide to support that. It seems that we've gotten to that point, and that the 30-30-30 may provide the taxpayer an opportunity. If they can, in fact, provide us with copies of the court cases where he went to court, and being understanding that you're not going to go to court on every taxpayer, it at least seems to imply that there's some reasonableness to his argument that there was a bad debt of some sort. And an adjustment for installation and repair appears to be in order. And if the adjustment at the end of the day results in a reduction in the markup from 100% down to a lower number, that would be understandable as well. And so I would encourage the agency to take, in this case, given the circumstances that the taxpayer faces, take a proactive consultation sort of position and see what we can do to kind of pull out the information necessary to get to the accurate number.
Mr. Horton, may I address?
Yes, sir.
I have provided everything that the auditor wanted from day one. I have argued with the auditor from day one that I can't double my price and sell that out on the market. It ain't, from day one I argued with him that I can't double my price and sell. It's not going to happen. And I provided him with, this is the stack that was returned to me 1 week later in a big fat envelope with the disc saying they couldn't open the thing. I also gave them the file that I gave to a collection company for all of the accounts that I put into collections on top of the other ones. I've been pretty forthcoming
Okay.
with the information. And then when I saw that they were saying that the initial one was saying that I owed $30,000, that I had made $80,000 over this the initial audit was nuts. I didn't sit there and ignore that. I knew the power of the Board of Equalization. They had already laid a lien on my home and stuff. I already understood the power of the Board of Equalization. I wasn't playing any games with the Board of Equalization. I gave them, I printed all this, this is tough. I printed it all out and I gave it to them. They just returned it to me and said, oh, we can't do anything about it. No, I have emails showing
I think
that I was in contact with these folks day after day after day after day.
I apologies, but
We're trying to give you a break
I think
here.
that it sounds as if though there was an evolution that took place, and as this case evolved, additional information was presented, and now we have an opportunity. The agency has an opportunity to take a look at it, and I think it would be very, very helpful to you. So,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you,
And I
would
you.
make a. Go ahead,
Uh-huh.
Mr. Randall.
Mr.
My
Randall.
apologies.
Yeah, I think we're in fact, I'll make a motion for a third, actually, I think one was made. I'll second the motion for a 30-30-30.
We'll explain to you what that means.
And let me just take a moment just to let you know. I think the issue is we are concerned that there's some information that would be helpful to you as a taxpayer. The problem is we don't have enough of it right now to make a decision. So you may be frustrated that you've already presented it, But the problem is we don't have enough information right now. So what we're going to do is you're going to get a 30-30-30, which simply means that you and the department are going to go ahead and talk more. The difference is you're going to be talking to them instead of the original auditors. And you're going to be able to talk some more about those issues. You'll present your things, they'll present theirs. You'll work through it. Eventually, and if you cannot get satisfied at that point, you will be back in front of us. So it's a continued hearing. And I think that's the best we can do. But we can't, there's not enough information for me to make a decision for you right now. So that's why I would support a 30-30-30.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a sentiment up here. All of us seem to feel there's parts missing. You know, you're a credible witness. We're not denying your credibility. We think you're a credible witness. A taxpayer testifying on his behalf is always difficult. There's a matter of QuickBooks. There's a matter of invoices. There's a matter of bad debts. Mr. Horton went through the audit issues with you, or with the department. The installation labor, maintenance labor, all of those things could reduce what the department originally assessed you. And then, like I said, this email says that the auditor actually prepared a claim for bad debt invoices, which we did not find in our review of the file. So I'd suggest we get that, and then, like Member Horton suggested, anything that you have to do that would be just like a sampling of what you actually collect on your bad debts when you went to small claims, anything that you can have. And so we apologize that you feel that you've provided all this. We up here at the board are trying to make an equitable decision based on the information presented to us. I know you were sick, and that totally explains why you didn't return phone calls. So this is just to give it a little more time, and you'll be working with department professionals that will be looking at everything, won't be the original auditor, and coming back and, figuring out where the margin is. So I think it's a good solution for you. I recommend that you take this and understand you're going to have some assistance. And somebody's going to be talking directly to you, not on multiple other accounts, but they'll be working on yours.
Thank you.
So the 30-30-30 was suggested and seconded.
Okay, Ms. Harkey made the motion for 30-30-30, seconded by Mr. Runner. Without objection, motion carries.
And to continue the hearing.
And to continue the hearing, yes.
If
Thank
it's
you,
not
Mr.
resolved,
Ashish.
right.
Yeah, if it's not resolved. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Richmond, has C5
Yes.
arrived?
Yes.
Okay.
So our next item is C5.
Thank you, Mr. Austin.
Suri Investments, Inc. Please come forward.
You done with me?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Are you done with me?
The answer, we're not sure yet.
We hope.
Okay, C5, Suri Investments, Inc. Please have a seat in front. Thank you.
Oh, that's your house.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, to the appeals, Ms. Vareggi, please introduce the issues in this case.
Madam Chair and board members, the appeal before you presents one unresolved issue, which is whether additional adjustments are warranted to the unreported taxable sales.
Okay. To the petitioners, thank you for coming today. You will have 10 minutes for your presentation. The government will have 10 minutes. You will have 5 minutes on appeals, and then you saw the whole process. We'll open it up for question and answers. So please introduce yourself for the record, and then you may begin.
Madam Chairman, good morning. Board members, good morning. My name is Roy McGarrell, and I am the representative for Mr. Parminder Singh and Suri Investments. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Parminder. I was the owner of Suri's Distribution.
You may begin. 10 minutes.
We can't really dispute the audit. When the audit was done, he was already evicted from the premises, so he did not have the paperwork. Whatever paperwork he had in his garage that he was able to take out of the premise before the eviction, that's what he was able to provide. So the audit was based mostly on estimates, which is not something that we are objecting to today. Our purpose here today is to say that Mr. Singh does not have the necessary wherewithal to pay this amount of money. The business is being closed. He doesn't have another business. He works as a security guard. He is showing the board, not the board, yes, the BOE, his bank statements. He is showing them his tax returns. He is offered to pay them $5,000 to get this debt away, and they have refused. And so he's here today in front of the board to say, what can you guys do to help him?
All right. Thank you. To the department?
Good morning, Chairwoman Ma, members. My name is Scott Lambert. To my right soon will be Kevin Hanks, and to his right is Stephen Smith, representing the legal department. In this particular case, the taxpayer operates a liquor store. He was closed out at the time of audit. The taxpayer provided 1 year of income tax returns. A liability was determined. And I can discuss that in detail if that's if you have any questions regarding that. It appears that there was some favorable treatment that was given to the taxpayer, but in any case, it doesn't appear that that is at question in this hearing. As far as the payments, we would, after this hearing, we would refer them to offers in compromise, and they could discuss it with them at that particular time. And we're unfamiliar with the Business and Tax Defeat Department is separate from the settlement unit, and we do not communicate by policy, by law. So I believe the audit was done correctly, adjustments were made. If anything, as I mentioned, there were some favorable treatments that I can get into if needed. But so therefore, the department concurs with the Appeals Division decision and recommendation.
Would you like to? You don't have to.
Well, we're not disputing the audit.
Okay. Right.
Simply because we don't have any paperwork.
Right.
Because again, when the audit was done, the eviction took place before the audit was done, and the paperwork was left on the premises. And he was only able to get out some of the paperwork. So there's no way we've got evidence or documentation to dispute the audit. What we're here for, we're saying, hey, Mr. Singh does not make that kind of money. He's showing him his tax returns for the last couple of years. He's offered to borrow some money from one of his family and settle his debt, and they keep refusing. And so when we're here in front of the board to find out what can be done so this debt can go away.
Okay. Any questions?
I say refer to OIC.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Harkey moves to refer this taxpayer in this case to the Offers and Compromise Division to see what can be done. Second, Mr. Horton?
May
Oh,
I,
sure.
to adopt staff recommendation, then
Okay, to adopt staff recommendation, but refer the case to Offers and Compromise. The motion was made by Ms. Harkey, seconded by Ms. Stowers.
I spoke to the Offers and Compromise, and we made an offer of $5,000. and they said that was not enough.
Okay, Mr. Njija, probably, or Ms.
Maybe-
Farigi, why don't you explain?
I just want to caution the board members to not get into the specifics of settlement. I would add that offers and compromise isn't available until there's a final decision,
yeah.
and we don't have a final decision yet, so I'd be surprised if it got to offers and compromise prior to.
Now, probably settlement. Settlement's
Yes.
different than OIC.
Right. So this is a different,
Okay.
and now another department will talk to you after the final judgment.
Madam Chair, I did have
Yes.
a question, though.
Mr. Hort?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question of the department, is this testimony new to the department? Was the department aware that the taxpayer had taken this position prior
Yes.
to the hearing?
Yes.
Was the taxpayer advised that there are other options to finalize this case without having to come before the board?
I believe the taxpayer wanted to present their case to the board members.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
Just at the risk of being redundant, I'm going to ask it a different way. The taxpayer could have possibly avoided the cost and expense and time of coming before the board and allowed the case to go final and then go to offer and compromise, if that was their desire, which may have made it reduce your cost of appearing before the board. Did the agency advise the taxpayer of that?
They were. They still wanted to exercise their right to.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Njija?
I may have missed it. I don't have an actual vote on the motion. I have a second.
I think
You didn't miss it.
You didn't miss
you didn't miss it. It's coming, right. Okay, let's do it again. Ms. Harkey, motions to sustain the department and refer this case to offers and compromise, seconded by Ms. Stowers. Without objection, motion carries. Thank you for coming
Thank you.
today. Thank you.
Okay, one more set, please.
Okay, next item, Ms. Richmond.
Our next item is C11 Isaac Peter Gharibeh, and I think he just walked in, so we're still copying his paperwork. Is that you, sir? Pardon me?
Yeah, that's the rep.
Yes,
Yes.
you're next. Please come forward.
What happened to C8?
It was postponed
Postponed? Okay.
All right.
yesterday.
Where you say you were copying records?
Pardon me?
You say you were copying records for them?
Probably.
Yes, we're copying the contribution form.
So wait a minute.
They're ready.
Ms. Richmond, are you, we still ready?
We're ready.
Oh, you're ready. Okay. All right, Ms. Reggie, please introduce the items of the case.
Madam Chair and board members, the appeal before you presents one unresolved issue, which is whether additional adjustments are warranted to the unreported taxable sales.
Okay. To the petitioner, taxpayer, welcome. You will have 10 minutes to present your case. Then the department will present for 10 minutes. You will have 5 minutes on rebuttal, and then we'll open it up for questions.
No problem.
Okay.
This is the first time here, you know.
Okay, yeah. So please
So,
introduce yourself for the
my
record.
My
please.
name is George Isa. I am representing Mr. Gharibeh. He is the owner of the Bar Melody. Thank you very much for granting me the opportunity to submit my case to you, seeking your assistance and judgment. My client and I waited 5 years for this moment. The auditor established his audit entirely on the fact sheet, which he applied to the whole audit period. This is dead wrong. Auditor never asked any question about how long this fact sheet been effective. My client used that sheet for a short period of time before he sold his business. Afterward, the auditor started to improvise his calculations. The auditor, by depending heavily on his fact sheet, has committed gross negligence and failure to render due professional care, thus rendering this audit obsolete. I objected on this finding. Later, a re-audit was done, supposedly by more experienced auditors. The result was out of this world devastating. More and more taxes imposed as a reward. I had no alternative but to insist on having a third party to conduct the audit, which I believe that evidence provided by an outside specialist will provide a fairness to verify any sales tax liability, if any, on my client's side. I think that those experienced auditors believe they, believe in the policy of Kellyanne Conway, which says alternative facts. What kind of observation the audit did? Normally, before doing any audit, the auditor must do observation on the business operations. Fair enough to say such operations should be done 5 to 6 times a month. Auditor never did do any valid observation. The auditor cannot rely heavily upon a glimpse of his personal observation as a means of appraising operating and financial results in order to support his audit. There was an article written in the Family Circle magazine dated November 1st, 2008, which reads as follows: alcoholic beverages served at restaurants and bars are over 50% larger than standard serving. This according to the new research. This means that if a person down 2 drinks in an hour, he may actually be consuming the equivalent of 3. Added to that, the generosity of the bartender who gives the customer an extra free drink, not considering breakage and spilling. In addition, Bar Melody does not use a measurement to pour in the drinks. The bartender just pours it from the bottle generously. I know that the auditor never ever noticed how the drinks are served. When a bartender mixes drinks, I assure you that the liquor poured is more than 1 or 2 jiggers. In a conference meeting dated March 10, 2010, my client brought to the meeting boxes of documents on card representing all his entire income for audited period, sales tapes, and payout of all his operation expenses. Unfortunately, my client and I were shocked when members of the board told us bluntly that they did not need to examine these papers. Also in this conference, I asked Supervisor Eileen Smith, the question, who paid more sales tax, my client or the seller? Eileen gave an honest answer, my client. In the audit report, auditor reported discovery of proportion that Bar Melody's taxable sales in 2005 is $977,713. This is excluding the non-taxable of more than $105,000 plus the sales tax of $38,000 in 2006. Auditor reported taxable sales of $753, excluding the non-taxable of $183,000 plus sales tax of $28,000. Finally, in 2007, auditor reported taxable sales of $738, excluding the taxable of $162 plus the income of $32,000 from the sales tax. According to the audit report, Bar Melody has the following total sales. Year 2005, $1,120,302. In 2006, $965,771. In 2007, gross sales $932,628. I don't know if we're going to get these figures. Gross sales reported by Melody Bar was 2005, $596. In the year 2006, $561. 2007, 582. That's a big difference between what he reported and what he reported. I don't know from where he got these figures. I'm hoping that members of the board will agree with me that the audit report represents nothing but the policy of weapon of mass destruction. Thank you again, and I leave the decision to be decided by your conscience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Issa. Okay, to the department, you'll have 10 minutes for your presentation. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Ms. Ma. My name is Scott Lambert. To my right is Kevin Hanks, and to his right is Steve Smith, all representing staff. In this particular case, the taxpayer operates a bar with a limited restaurant. The audit was initially selected because it was going through escrow, and they needed a clearance for the sale of the business. Upon a look of the markup, the markup of record for 2005 was 123%, 2006 was 100%, and the 2007 markup was 111%. This is extremely low for a restaurant and bar. If you use an example, which is generally their lowest markup item, which would be a bottle of beer, and it sold for $3 a bottle, cost approximately $1. The profit is $2. If you divide the $2 into the cost, the profit and the cost, you get a 200% markup. That is higher than the book markups that they have reported to us. That's an indication that the total sales that have been reported are understated. The taxpayer did not provide us with the daily sales reports. The restaurant and bar are open daily for 16 hours a day from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. Generally, when a cashier rings out, there'll be a ring out after each shift. There's a report that's prepared. That information was not provided to us. There were bank statements that were provided. The deposits into the bank statements were less than the sales that they reported to the board, which is an indication that not all deposits, at least, are being deposited into that bank account. So a 1-month period was used. It was November of 2007. Of the purchase invoices, there was a segregation test. That information was then used to establish a markup. There was a bar fact sheet that was prepared. The information from the bar fact sheet and the purchase invoices were used to establish a markup. Upon reviewing for this case, I note that there are possibly some issues with the markup of liquor, which is both well and call drinks. It appears that maybe a more extended test would show a lower markup for those items. There's also minor issues with the draft beer premium, both pitcher and single glass. Those, I will point out, for the draft beer premium, it's less than 1% of purchases. It's fairly minor. There also appears that there should be an allowance, a 2% allowance for pilferage and spoilage for the food. There was a 2% allowed for self-consumption. There should be an additional allowance. I brought this to the attention of the representative that we would be willing to make an adjustment, that I felt that there was enough information for the department to, before it goes to a board hearing, to make an adjustment. The representative decided not to, or exercise his right to come to a board hearing. So the department's not opposed to making those adjustments. The The liquor pour has been allowed at 1.5 ounces, which is a decent sized pour. I'll point out on the bar fact sheet that the taxpayer has a 5-ounce glass. When you fill a glass with ice and put 1.5 ounces alcohol into the glass, there is not much room left for a mixer. So it's difficult even to get 1.5 ounces, let alone more into the glass. There were also additional adjustments that are made for on the alcohol. There was a pilferage and spoilage at 2%. We've allowed adjustments for liquor spilled of 12%, wine spilled 6%, and spill and overpours. And so the normal allowances have been made in this case. As I point out, there's no question that the sales that have been reported are understated. In regards to the food for these type of establishments with a restaurant bar normally is between 200 to 250%. In this case, a 212% markup was used. It was arrived at through a different means and was kept because it fell within the normal range that we would expect. There is no penalty in this case. There were limited sales records that were provided. So other than the department's recommendation that we take a look at some of the issues that I've described, other than that, the department concurs with the Appeals Division decision and recommendation.
Okay, Mr. Issa, you may
Yes.
rebut, 5 minutes.
Yes. Regarding the bank deposits for the whole year, we declared total sales 596 in 2005, and bank deposits were 493. In 2006, we declared total sales of 561, 965, bank deposit 509,024. In 2007, we declared 582, 994 sales, total sales, with bank deposit 530, 194. Total I can't see it. I have total taxable sales for 2005, 453,757, which equivalent to the tax sales of 37,735. The auditor came up with taxable sales of 977,713. I mean, from where he invented these figures. Same thing with the 2006. We have taxable sales 349,496. He doubled it, 753,302. In 2007, I have taxable sales of 388,480. He said no, 738, 114. I mean, excuse me. This is obviously, I don't know from where he got this. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out from where he got these figures. Period. I have we brought all the documents, sales slips, everything to the meeting. They don't want to look at them. Why?
All right, questions, Mr. Runner?
Yeah, I understand there's a dispute in regards to some of the numbers, but my understanding is the department did offer to try to make some adjustments. And I guess your client or you were not willing to make those adjustments.
I declined to do any adjustment.
What's that?
I declined to do any adjustment.
Okay,
You know,
so,
Mr. Lambert offered me an adjustment. I said,
Right.
Ratfield, I'm sorry, I don't accept it. I want to submit my case to you, and then let the decision be made.
Okay, because I think the number's going to be somewhere in between. I mean, I think the issue is going to be trying to find the right number, and I think that's our challenge. You know, and so it seems to me, again, this is going to be redundant of our last discussion, but it seems to me that if the department is willing to make some adjustments, particularly on pour size and some of these other issues, which is going to be a reduction in some of these liabilities, you and your client would want to at least be able to see those and to move and to see if those get you closer. The alternative for us is to go and have you go back to a 30-30-30, talk through these numbers, see if you can come to an adjustment that is reasonable, because it's going to take more than just you disputing the numbers. Then again, if you can't come to a conclusion, you'll be back in front of us again. But at this point, it seems to me we are a little get lost in terms of a decision to be made, because we've already heard from the department that they're willing to make some adjustments, but I'm not sure we're willing to exactly lay those out right now, because we're talking about some other kinds of things that need to be talked through. And so I would suggest and actually make a motion for a 30-30-30 for you all to get together and continue the hearing, but I would listen carefully to the adjustments that they are wanting to make too, along with you providing the additional information.
I do have a couple questions. Mr. Issa, I have a couple questions first.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Now, when you say, you just gave us the sales and the bank deposits for 2005, 2006, 2007.
Yes.
Where do those numbers come from?
From the bank statement.
From the bank statement. And are they also reported on the tax returns the same way? The same numbers?
Every item on the bank statement was transferred exactly to the income statement.
Okay. So, to the department, what is the discrepancy? Did the taxpayers not charge tax on certain items that you audited? I couldn't really understand
Okay.
why the numbers are double.
Oh, why we don't? Well, and it basically comes down to the fact that we impeached their records, which means we didn't accept what their records were. And the reason for that is, when you take a look at the markup of record, and it's, in one case, it's at 100%, that's not what you would find in this type of business. There are no, well, I shouldn't say no. The facts from the bar sheet didn't support 100% markup. It supported a much higher markup. So there can be an adjustments in how you arrive at that, but the bottom line is that they had so many purchases of, and we broke it down between liquor, food, beer,
And
wine.
you had those numbers?
We did.
Okay.
We did have those numbers.
Okay.
And when you take a look at those and then you start figuring out, okay, these are my purchases, this is how much we should receive from the
Okay.
sale of those, and you compare it to the cost of those,
Right.
It's not 100%, it's
Right.
over 300%. And that's where the problem comes down to, is the taxpayer's argument is, this is what I reported, and that was all of my sales, and so that's what we say we owe. We say, you know what, the fact that you deposited into the bank and it matches the sales that you reported on your income tax returns, it appears that not all receipts were deposited into the bank account. You cannot have 100% markup based on the business that was described in the bar fact sheet.
So did you have bank statements? Did you use bank statements,
We did.
credit card statements?
We did not use the credit card statements, but we wouldn't be opposed to taking a look at that. If the taxpayer wants to provide us with, give us again the bank statements, and for us to take a look at what the credit card receipts were, and look at it from that standpoint, we're willing to take a look at that. The method that we use is an established method that the Board of Equalization uses to arrive at taxable sales when we impeach a taxpayer's record, but we're willing to look at additional information. And as I pointed out in this particular case, I believe there is room for adjustment based on what we've done, and I'm willing to, or the department's willing to, recommend us to take another look.
And what type of source documents did you have to, use as a baseline? For this case, did you have, distribution invoices? What did you use exactly?
Right. They provided us with their purchase invoices for the month of November of 2007. So we took all of their purchases, and then we broke them down between the different categories. And there's a lot of different categories for these types of businesses, because you could end up with, they'll have behind the bar, and I don't know how familiar you are with the bar industry, but you'll have generally what's called a well drink, and that's what, if you don't say what kind of liquor you want, you're going to get what they normally serve. And so that's a well drink.
The cheapest.
Cheap. Yeah, it's the cheapest drink to the customer. Yeah, and it's the cheapest the bottle that they buy.
Right.
But it's not what they get their highest. Well, I'll take that back. It is what they get their highest markup on is the well drink. It's not the call drink, which is more expensive because the call liquor costs more. So, and then you can also have what's called a premium drink, and that's a
even
more
more.
expensive drink. But then you have
But the markup is less.
yeah, it's generally less. Yeah, because you usually make your markup on some of those bottles of liquor. It might be less than $10 for a bottle, and you're able to sell,
Right.
say you
Got
can
it.
sell 25 drinks out of there at $4 a shot. So you're making $100 on a $10 bottle. But there's the draft beer, there's wine, there's draft premium, there's singles, there's pitchers. We have to go through all of those
Got it.
things. Yeah.
Got it. So, Mr. Issa, so you kind of heard how they derive their numbers is based on the purchase.
Yes, but you cannot apply, this policy on Bar Melody. Bar Melody is a bar that was run down. It wasn't fancy bar, It was, the money was not made from the liquor.
What was it made from?
It was from entry fees when he started to introduce the bands to the bar, and he was offering happy hours with food.
Okay.
And he has
So-
game machines, and that was a good source for him.
Okay, so I think this is what the adjustments could be made if you all get together. I think probably the sentiment is a 30-30-30, meaning 30 days for, what is it, Mr. Anjija? I don't want to say it
30.
wrong. 30 days for,
30-30-30 and continue the hearing.
I know, but explain to him what 30-30-30 means.
Well, in this case, the department already has some of the information that it needs to make those adjustments, but they would allow the taxpayer 30 days to provide any additional information, 30 days for the department to consider that and essentially perform a quick re-audit, and then appeals has 30 days to consider that, and if there remains a dispute, it would come back before the board.
We still have the documents, which
You
I
still have the
brought-
documents?
I brought them to the conference.
O-
They said they
Okay,
don't want
great.
them.
So, you probably weren't here for the last case, but we basically explained that you will now be working with the department. They're just gonna focus on your case. You're not gonna get the same auditor that came out originally. So we are really trying to resolve the case, and you will be able to provide that type of information, when they had bands, how many people came, any sort of, write-offs, anything that you feel was not taken into account just based on that 1 month, right, that they used. So this is an opportunity for them to go back again and look at your records, you to give them the records and a fuller picture of what happened, and then they will look at it again for 30 days and then come back. And if it's still not satisfactory, it's not resolved, then you will come back before us but at least we will have a better picture of what's going on, because
I
right
see.
now, we don't know the attendance record, we don't know exactly, how many nights they did what they did, how many, meals they served, when they stopped serving, how many drinks. I mean, we just don't know right now at this level today, so that's why we're giving you an opportunity to go back again.
No problem. I can bring the records.
Okay.
You can have over
Okay,
here,
Ms.
I
Harkey.
brought some samples of them, and
Thank
you
you.
can look at them.
We're not going to look at those here,
I
but
know.
we do appreciate you bringing them with you. We will, like Chairwoman said, we're going to be recommending this, but I do want to make a suggestion. The shelf test for alcohol should be expanded. I think there's only 2 that were used, as opposed to, I guess, the 9 that could have been. That would be, and also maybe abate the interest for the period of 10/1/04 to 6/30/16. There were some unreasonable delays and errors in the audit process. I know that the department removed interest for the 5 years that the file was lost, but I think there were like 3 different audits, different amounts, and maybe some delays there. So that would be my recommendation, too, if we can get this resolved somehow. Other than that, I agree with the 30-30-30.
Okay, Mr. Horton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I haven't seen enough evidence to direct staff to make an adjustment of interest. I would be supportive of them taking that under consideration, but
Right.
certainly wouldn't want to direct them to do so. The other concern is we may have to take some additional time to have the initial discussion with the taxpayers so that they fully understand what transpired here today and what his options are. There appears to be a reluctance to cooperate, but yes, still the willingness to cooperate, which is a weird mixture here. So I just think we need to spend the extra time to kind of go through the calculations and maybe some hypotheticals. If this was the case, here's what the adjustment might be, so that there's a better understanding of what you're attempting to do. Lastly, I just want to commend the agency, the department, for being forthcoming with this information, thoughtful, and trying to get to the right number and be as cooperative as they can with the taxpayer. We appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. There was a motion. Is there a second for 30-30-30?
Yeah, I think there was a motion and a second. Oh,
Did you second?
I'll second,
Okay.
yeah.
Mr. Runner moves, Ms. Harkey seconds for 30-30-30, and to continue this case.
No, I'm glad to bring all the documents we have.
Okay, good.
No
Well,
problem.
you'll have the opportunity now, Mr. Issa.
I wish they asked for it.
Thank you.
They never did.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Not happy.
Hey, Ms. Richmond, next item?
Our next item is a matter that was put over from yesterday's meeting, and that's item O, adoption of the board committee reports and approval of committee actions. O1 is the legislative committee, and they were just given to you.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Runner moves, seconded by Ms. Stowers, to adopt the recommendations for the legislative committee and action from yesterday. Without objection, motion carries. Next item, Ms. Richmond.
Our last item for today is an administrative matter, the organization of the board. There are 2 items. They may be taken up separately or together.
Yes, so I just want to reiterate from last year. At the Culver City Board meeting last February, the board voted 3-2, with Ms. Yee and myself voting in the minority, to rotate the chair annually at the conclusion of the February meeting, this February, or last February meeting, by equalization districts in the order of District 2, District 4, District 1. The board also unanimously chose to rotate the vice chair at the same time, with the member scheduled to become chair the following year. The board also voted 4-1 that the chair will recommend committee chairs, which will then be ratified by the board in the open session. Following the board's vote last year on the sequence of the chair rotation, I motion to make the rotation of the chair to board member Harkey and vice chair to board member Runner effective immediately. Any discussion?
We'll second it.
Okay,
That was
so that was my motion?
Oh,
Well, we don't have to actually vote on it, we're just
Well,
continuing.
but I think, because it was 2 and 4 and 1, that's not really a name, so we still have to say.
I'd second it, Madam Chair.
Chair Harkey, okay. So I made the motion, Mr. Horton seconded. Turn over the gavel to the new chairwoman, Diane Harkey, and vice chair, Mr. Runner.
All right.
Okay.
I really am I'm honored to be doing this. I have never worked with a more educated, well-informed, talented board. And that doesn't set aside any of the wonderful people I've worked with in the past, but this board is, in my opinion, extremely talented. Each one has a skill set that is beyond what I have been able to work with before, and I learned from each one. There's just a lot of knowledge here and a lot of political experience as well as practical experience on the ground. I mean, to have a CPA, to have Ms. Stowers, who is so legal in her analysis, and to have Mr. Horton, who has been in the legislature as well as a member of the board, an auditor, and to have Mr. Runner, who has been at every level of government service. It's just, and truly on this board for, 4 years, it's truly an honor and a privilege to be chair of this board. And I want to thank everyone for their support. I will be soliciting input on committees, and I thank you all very much.
Madam Chair Ma,
Mr. Horton?
members, I think it's appropriate for us to acknowledge the outstanding work of Chairwoman Ma. I mean, she has really been a leader in the legislative area, advancing legislation. She's been a leader with the organization. She took on a number of assignments on behalf of this board, and I believe did an exceptional job. So my appreciation and recognition of her work publicly. And thank you, Madam Chair, for a year of service.
Well, you got us organized. We were organized.
Okay, Ms. Stowers.
Hi. Ditto. Thank you, former Madam Chair. Great job. Looking forward to the new chair and the new vice chair and an exciting 12 months.
I'll
Mr. Runner.
I'm back clean up here. I appreciate the opportunity that we all have to serve, and I think that's one of the hallmarks of this organization is that we're able to focus on the role of the job and accomplish good things together. I too want to congratulate the new chair and in this process, and then also again thank Member Ma for her leadership in this process. And again, I think maybe we'll probably do a little more recognition and prepared at the next meeting in regards to that. But I think
Right.
certainly
Sure
is
will.
I think an opportunity for us to move forward and continue to do the good things the board does.
Thank you. And I just want to echo Ms. Harkey that I do think this board takes our role very seriously in terms of hearing the cases as well as the administration of the agency. And it's just an honor to be here. It's an honor to serve as chair for a year. It was a great learning experience and look forward to Ms. Harkey's leadership.
Thank you. I only hope I do as well at keeping everything going as you do. Thank you.
Well, running the assembly kind of gave me practice.
I think so. I think so.
So, thank you, thank you. Okay, so any other items, Ms. Richmond?
No, that concludes our business for this meeting.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all.